All right, let's picture this. You're on a flight, cruising way up there at 30,000 feet. You pull out your laptop, find that little USB port on the seat back, and you plug in. It's just one of those little modern miracles we totally take for granted, right? But what if everybody on the plane did that at the exact same time? Well, that is the exact rabbit hole we are diving down today.
And hey, this isn't just some random shower thought. This was a real question that a user posted on Reddit, and it kicked off this absolutely incredible conversation. They were genuinely curious. Could a plane full of people all trying to charge their devices actually, cause a problem? It's such a simple question, but the answer is way more fascinating than you'd think.
So let's get into it. This wasn't just a bunch of random guesses. Pretty soon, actual pilots, electrical engineers, and aircraft technicians all started jumping into the conversation. They took this one little question and turned it into a full-blown masterclass on how planes actually work.
So let's break down the numbers here. We're talking about a pretty standard plane, maybe a 737, with about 180 passengers. And let's say every single seat has one of those nice new USB-C ports that can pump out 60 watts. If every single person plugs in something that's pulling that full 60 watts, what gives? Do the lights flicker? Does a fuse blow? It's a pretty reasonable question.
Okay, so the first place everyone's mind went, the most common theory that popped up right away, involved a piece of equipment called the APU. A lot of people figured, hey, that's gotta be where all the power comes from, right? Makes sense. But, as the experts in the trade were quick to point out, that's a really common misconception.
So, what even is this APU thing? Well, it's basically a small, extra jet engine that's tucked away in the tail of the plane. And yeah, its name literally has the word power in it, but its main job is not what you might think, especially not once you're up in the air.
And here's the deal. The APU is the king of the tarmac. When the plane is sitting at the gate, that's when the APU is working hard, powering the lights, running the AC so you're not sweating, and, this is the big one, it provides that huge blast of air needed to get the main engine started. But see that last point. As soon as those main engines are roaring and you're flying, the APU gets shut down. Its job is done.
So, if the APU is just snoozing in the back of the plane, where in the world is all that electricity coming from? Well, the answer has been right there in front of us the whole time. It's attached to the two things that are already doing all the heavy lifting, the main engines.
Yep, the real heroes of our story are these things called integrated drive generators, or IDGs. You gotta think of those massive jet engines as more than just propulsion. They are flying power stations. A little bit of that incredible spinning force from the engine gets diverted to run these generators, and that creates all the electricity the plane could ever need.
And just how much power are we talking about here? Get this. A single one of these generators on one engine can crank out up to 90,000 volt amps of power. And remember, there are two of them. That is just a staggering amount of juice. But to really get a sense of the scale, we have to compare it to our little passenger problem.
Okay, let's do that math again. 180 people all pulling 60 watts. That adds up to 10,800 watts. Now, think back to that other number, 90,000 per engine. You can see right away that what the passengers are using is just a tiny drop in a very, very big bucket. But hold on a second.
You might have noticed we're using two different units here, VA for what the generator makes and W for what our devices use. And in the world of AC power, they're not exactly the same thing. Understanding the difference is actually pretty important, and this is where that Reddit thread got really, really clever.
To explain this whole VA versus watts thing, one of the users posted an analogy that is just, it's perfect. Seriously. It's so simple, so effective, and hey, it involves beer, so what's not to love?
I mean, how brilliant is that? The generator has to make enough power for the entire glass. That's the liquid beer and the foamy head on top. That's the kVA. But the only part that actually does any work for you, the part that charges your phone, that's the liquid beer itself. That's the kilowatt. So even if there's a little bit of foam, the amount of actual beer available is still enormous.
Let's just stick with the analogy because it's so good. The total power draw from all 180 of us isn't even a full pint. It's more like taking one tiny little sip from a keg that's big enough to power a whole block party. The plane's ability to generate power is just on a completely different level.
But it gets even better. It's not just about having an overwhelming amount of raw power. Modern airplanes are also incredibly smart about how they manage all that power. We're not talking about some simple system that's just waiting for a breaker to trip.
You know, in your house, if you plug in the microwave, the toaster, and the air fryer all at once, you might trip a breaker. An airplane's electrical system is way, way more sophisticated than that.
It's designed from the ground up with tons of redundancy and smart load management. Its whole job is to manage power gracefully.
The system has this whole bag of tricks. First off, your charger and the port actually talk to each other to figure out exactly how much power your device needs. It's a negotiation. If a whole row of people plugs in at once, the system can just lower the wattage to each seat to share the load. And if things get really hairy, the plane has a priority list. In an actual power shortage, it's going to start shutting down things like the ovens in the galley way before it lets passenger charging affect anything important.
And this right here, this explains a super common thing people talked about. When someone plugs in a massive, power-hungry gaming laptop and the outlet just seems to die. Well, it's not broken. The plane's system just saw a device asking for way too much power and politely said, nope, not today, to that one outlet to protect the whole system. Meanwhile, your phone, which asks for a reasonable amount, charges up just fine.
So, when you put it all together, the massive amount of power being generated and the super intelligent systems managing it, you just start to appreciate the incredible and totally invisible engineering that makes flying so safe and reliable. And if you need the final, ultimate, definitive answer, this quote from a support engineer in the thread just says it all. They actually tested it. They measured how much fuel the engines used with the electrical system barely running versus with it running at maximum load. And the difference was so small, the plane's own super-sensitive instruments couldn't even detect it. The power your phone is using is literally a rounding error. So, after all that, we have our answer. If every single passenger on a full flight plugged in their device at the exact same moment, what would happen? Absolutely nothing. The plane wouldn't even blink, the pilots wouldn't have a clue, it's a complete non-event, all thanks to some truly incredible engineering.
And I think that's the coolest takeaway here. The next time you're on a plane, or really just going about your day, it kind of makes you wonder, right? What other amazing, invisible systems are humming along in the background, just making our